So, you've recently started Final Fantasy XIV and you are not sure what to expect when you get in. Don't worry, you come to the right place. Welcome to part 1 of the Sprout Guide 14, a video series where I am going to try to teach new and returning players about playing Final Fantasy XIV, explain some of the gameplay systems and mechanics that the game might not do a great job of explaining. Today we're going to be talking about just getting started in the game, a couple of things to know as you're creating your first character, a couple of quick basic tips that can get you off on the right foot, and without further ado, before I start rambling, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so first thing you're going to have to do when you get into Final Fantasy XIV is service selection. This might look a bit complicated, but don't worry about it, it's pretty simple. As you can see here, these are the various data centers, Aether, Primal Crystal, Chaos Light, Elemental Gaia Mana. All the things you see listed below are the individual servers, also known as the worlds. All of the worlds on a single data center can interact with each other, but as of right now, data centers cannot interact with each other. That is going to be changing in the very near future. As for which one you should be picking, pick one based off of your region or where your friends are playing. For reference, North American servers are in California, European ones are in Germany, and Japanese are... I'll be honest, I don't know exact location. However, some of you in Oceania might be curious about which one you should join. Good news is with Endwalker, you will be getting one based in Australia. So otherwise, like I just said, just pick whichever one is in your region or has friends. If you can't get on it right away, you might have to wait till some odd times, as servers will open and close throughout the day depending on current population. And if you can somehow get on a preferred world, which will double your XP gains up to level 70 for 3 months, do that. Just note that North American and European data centers currently do not have any. So once you select your server, you will get into Character Creator. Simply put, to just make this quick and painless, pick whatever you like the look of. There's statistically no difference between them. Technically, they do have different starting stats, completely irrelevant. Hrothgar and Vera are expansion locked with Shadowbringers, and while they are currently gender locked, Hrothgar only male, Vera only female, Endwalker is bringing male Vera and female Hrothgar, all confirmed in the works. Once you select, you will also be able to select a clan, same as before. Just pick whichever you like the look of. Once again, starting attributes are completely irrelevant. Character Creator, it's standard Character Creator. Some of these can be changed within the game for quote-unquote free. You will have to pay in-game currency, but it's complete pocket change. Some races will also have a few unique tattoos and facial features, but for the most part, they're pretty much all the same. Once you get through this, you can choose to save your appearance data and even use it to create other characters down the line. Birthday doesn't particularly matter unless you're doing some roleplay stuff, in which case the first couple tabs also had some lore stuff. Deity, once again, has no impact on gameplay at all, so pick whichever one you like the look of. So once you get all that done, you go into class selection. This might seem really daunting. This is usually a major choice in a lot of games. Final Fantasy XIV simplifies this by the sheer fact that you can level every single class on every single character. Only restriction will be which content you have access to and what level you are. As for the classes you're presented with at the start, you'll be able to choose between the Disciples of War, which deal physical damage, and the Disciples of Magic, that deal magic damage. Gladiator and Marauder are going to be tanks. Pugilist and Lancer are going to be melee DPS. Archer is the sole range DPS that you get access to at the start of the game. For your Disciples of Magic, Conjurer is a healer, Thaumaturge is a caster DPS, and Arcanist is a caster DPS, although at later levels it can also gain a pet healer variant. As for which ones you should select, Conjurer is very strong, Thaumaturge has a very low skill floor but an extremely high skill ceiling, so there's a ton of growth there. Either of the tanks, perfectly fine. I would personally recommend Gladiator, but that's completely personal preference. Every class in this game is perfectly viable at everything. DPS-wise, I would recommend avoiding Pugilist. It's a bit more on the advanced side. Lancer's a really solid option, and if you don't know what to do at all, Archer's probably the best starting class. It's very simple, and It's personally one of my favorite classes in the game. But as I said, all classes in the game are viable, and upon completion of your level 10 class quest, you will be able to swap. You'll also have access to even more classes, including crafters and gatherers. So pick one that you like the look of the most and go with it. So now that I get into the game, what do? Well, it's an MMO, it's an RPG, so the obvious thing will be quests and leveling. We're going to talk about quests first, and then we'll go into leveling. Just note there's going to be a quick TLDR because these each are massive potential videos on their own. And other people have probably done, especially the leveling, better than I ever could, so let's just go over a quick TLDR. Questing, there's going to be 3 main types of quests you will be seeing around the world. Technically, there's many more, but most of them are just variants of these. First off is going to be the main quest you will be doing, your main scenario quest, also known as the MSQ. This is the quest line that will follow the main story of the game. Final Fantasy XIV is extremely story heavy. It's oftentimes actually referred to as a JRPG within an MMO. So yeah, story is a major part. Not only is it, like I said, it's massive, it's a ton, and I mean a ton of content, and I mean that seriously. The MSQ is actual content. It also gets a ton of the other content in the game behind it, including pretty much the entirety of endgame, and you will be doing story pretty much the entire time until you're caught up on it. So be doing your story, keep it up to date at all costs. It is extremely important to keep up to date on your MSQ. You could be max level, but it doesn't matter if you're still in the base game story, you won't have access to any of the end game stuff. Past that, you go into your basic side quest, and there's 2 different kinds. There's the green side quest and blue side quest. Green side quests, they're pretty basic, tend to usually not be overly worthwhile, although there are some that have really good rewards, and some that are super long quest chains. It's pretty hard to tell at a glance which is which, but there's a ton of resources online if you want to see which of these side quests are really absolutely worth doing. Because even though I just said that they usually aren't, some of them are actually really good, and are actual legitimate hidden gems. Past that, the blue side quests, pretty similar to green side quests. However, these ones are actually almost entirely always worth doing, as they unlock new content, new gameplay features. Just be careful, as when you hit endgame, a ton of these will pop up, and if you're not careful, you might end up walking into some of the higher end endgame content unprepared, and that's probably not going to end overly well. Past that, leveling, as I said, this is just going to be a super quick TLDR, a couple of the best ways. MSQ, as I said, it's very important to the game. Not only does it gain content, it's also the single best source of XP in the game. If you have a main class that you figured out you want to play, do the MSQ with it. I can almost guarantee you it will get you to level 80, no problem whatsoever. Heck, depending on how you play, and if you manage to get on a preferred server or not, you can even level almost 2 entire classes just off of the MSQ. Past that, dungeon spam, just pick your highest level dungeon and go, go, go. It gives pretty solid XP for the time investment, and you can get some pretty good gear and even occasionally minions, which is always fun. Past that, fates are just open world events. They're usually not worth doing alone. However, if you combine them with some of the longer queue times that you can get for duties, especially DPS queues, they can be pretty dang efficient. It means you're pretty much always getting a constant stream of XP. Side quests, as I was before, and to find at really low levels before you have access to dungeon spam. And in the latest expansion, Shadowbringers, they will scale with your levels, so they're actually not bad. But obviously, these are one time, and the in-betweens, that usually not worthwhile to do them solely for leveling. So to end the video, I'm just going to do a couple of quick rapid-fire tips. This isn't going to be all-encompassing. I do have plans to talk about stuff a little bit later on in more detail, so let's just get straight into it. As I said before, keep up on your class quests. They're very important. You lock out your access to your job stone and your job, but also a ton of other skills are locked exclusively behind the story quest, so do these. Swapping classes in this game is very simple. You just swap whatever your main weapon is to the one for the class you want to play. Just know that doing it this way does not immediately equip your job stone most of the time. So if you're doing this often, be wary of that. If you can learn to use gear sets, do it. It'll make this process much easier. If you don't understand gear sets, they're available to you right at the start of the game, so once you can find them, you can play around with them. I do plan to make a quick video about this down the line, so if you guys can't figure it out, Give me a little bit and I will get that to you. That's it. The game obviously is an MMORPG, so there's gonna be chat, right? Yeah, this chat. No voice chat though, so if you don't like talking with strangers, don't worry, there's no voice chat. It's not like PSO2 where you have to spend the first 5 minutes of the game trying to find the setting to turn it off. No voice chat. There is text chat. There's a ton of text chat channels. Try to find a way to keep an eye on them all. You can do this in your settings, set up multiple chat windows that you can cycle between with different chat settings and all that. Just keep your chat box somewhere. Keep it open because communication in 14 is huge. If you're not able to do mechanics, some people might be throwing out like, hey, you got to do it this way or do it that way. Most people, especially if you're new, are willing to help you out. And if they're being assholes, report them. The GMs take stuff pretty dang seriously, and if they deem it worthwhile, they will get hold of you really quickly if they need more information. And for the most part, they tend to take action pretty fast. If you start the game and you realize you're not quite enjoying the opening section and want to skip to the later parts, be careful. There's a reason that the skips in 14 are infamous within the community. Most of the people who skip don't try to do any research and don't realize that the game is very linear. It's designed that you play through all the story content to get up to the current end game, and the game is going to assume you've done that and just keep building on itself more and more and more. And jumping from, say, the very first dungeon to the latest expansion, you're in for a bad time. So if you do decide to story skip, please do your research. It'll make your life easier. It'll make all your teammates' lives easier. It'll make everyone's life easier. So yeah, if you skip, look into what you skipped. Try to understand what's going on. Understand the basics of your class. Maybe go run a couple of old dungeons and trials to see the different types of mechanics, and then get back. Past that, final tip, be patient. The game is a very slow burner, but once it picks up hard, it picks up fast, and it gets really good. Payoff is massive, and if you're taking things up what feels like a bit too slow, don't worry, they don't remove content. This is not Destiny 2. We're not being run by Bungie. The only time stuff gets removed is if it is absolutely god-awful and needs a rework. Looking at you, D&M. They will occasionally trim MSQ, but most of this is just really basic-ass fetch quests. And talk to these 3 people, walk back to the quest giver, you're done. Just really basic filler quests tend to get removed every so often. So, take your time. Enjoy the game at your own pace. No one is rushing you, and if they are, tell them to shut up. And with that, to prevent the video from dragging on much longer, I am going to end it. Part 1 of the Stress Guide 14 here. Thank you guys for watching. If you found the guide helpful, a like would be appreciated. And if I missed covering anything that you want to know more about, let me know in the comments. And also, let me know what you thought of the video as a whole. I'm still new to this whole guide thing. This is actually the second iteration on this video I've uploaded, so let me know what you think. Let me know what I can change, what you like, what you dislike, all that. That'll be greatly appreciated, and we'll go into the next couple of videos. I want this series to be as good as it can be, so that it can be a actual legitimate resource for new and returning players. So, yeah, as I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide and have fun in yours here.